Hey there, it's Nicola from nicolanewman.com. And I was wondering, have you heard about Liz Gilbert's beautiful new book, Big Magic? Well, stay tuned because I'm going to be sharing with you some of my favourite takeaways as well as how you can win a copy of her beautiful book. So last week, Andrew and I were lucky enough to go to Brisbane and see Liz Gilbert speaking live about her new book, Big Magic. And I thought, well, that's a perfect opportunity to share with you some of the tools and the insights that she shares in the book, as well as give away a copy, because what happened was I was so excited about this book coming out that I actually put it on order before it was released. And then when it was released, I ordered another copy. So I got 2 copies from Amazon, which was a nice surprise. And I finished reading the book just before Christmas, and I read through thinking, I agree with that, I agree with that, I agree with that. Liz has written a book that is so easy to read, it's quite funny, and it's basically one of the best books about creativity that I've ever read. Some of them can get quite heavy, they can get quite scientific, and hers is actually a really easy read and very relatable as well. So in the opening chapters of the book, Liz tackles the major blocks that stop people from wanting to create whatever it is that they feel called to create. And she says that basically it all boils down to some form of fear, whether it's fear that they're not good enough to be able to make something with the skills that they have. They might fear criticism or fear that they're not being original. Basically, she says it all boils back down to fear. And I find it really refreshing to read that her way of dealing with fear is to not try and quash it, not trying to remove it from herself entirely, but instead to work with it and allow it to come with her on the journey, but not to make any decisions when it comes to her creative process. Because she says fear is actually a really important life-preserving part of our life. We need to be able to know when something's dangerous or something's not serving us. And so we don't need to actually cut fear out of our life in order to be creative, but we need to find ways to work with it. So that was a very popular takeaway that she shares in the book. Secondly, what I love that she talks about is the importance of nurturing your curiosity rather than waiting to feel this overwhelming passion in life. She says that passion is overrated in our culture, and it's following your little curiosities that often lead into the motivation and the inspiration to make something. I know I certainly find that very much the case in the studio. And for the blog as well. It's about following your little curiosities and feeding those curiosities that can blossom into beautiful creations. Another thing that she talks about is making art for yourself. Not making art to try and please other people, to fix other people, to impress other people, but really coming back to your own centre and doing it because it lights you up, or it's something that interests you and it's a record of your own personal discovery. So one final point I wanted to touch on before we get into the juicy details of how you can enter for the competition to win a copy is this concept of perfectionism. Now I know it sometimes can feel like perfectionism is a really high and mighty thing to have as an ideal. And I'm going to make sure that this thing is really awesome and really perfect before I send it out into the world. But instead, Liz says she believes that perfectionism is actually a really fancy, dressed up form of fear. And I tend to agree, because if we're really worrying about being perfect, oftentimes that perfectionism is because we are trying to focus on how we're being perceived from externally. So from other people's opinion of what it is that we've made or what it is that we're embodying or who we are, instead of coming from a place where it's an expression of you and you're trying to guide yourself into deciding according to your own aesthetics and your own values of whether it's delighting you and lighting you up. So she says that for her, I don't care if something's perfect, I just want it to be finished. And I also agree. There's much more joy to be had from allowing yourself to get started, go through the messy middle that always happens in any creative project. It's happened today while I've been making this video for you. There's been breaks and outtakes and things where I'm trying to get into the flow and it doesn't feel like it's working the way that in my head I'd pictured it before I started. But then you have to kind of go through that messy middle and then come to a point where there's a resolution and you're like, you know what, that's done. That's explored whatever avenue it was that I was trying to set out to explore, and let's leave it at that and move on to the next project. And it's such a fulfilling way to live. If I look back on the huge number of paintings that I've done since I was 18, I'm now 34, so that's been a lot of paintings. I look back at the beginning and I think, you know, those are really sweet, innocent paintings that I first begun doing. And some of them are lovely and some of them I would think, oh, I'd be happy not to see them again. But if I didn't allow myself to make and finish those paintings, then I wouldn't be making the work that I'm making today, because it all builds your skills and it builds your ability and helps to hone your craft. So setting out with the intention that something has to be perfect or it has to encapsulate everything that you love all in one creation is really a surefire way to hobble yourself, like, you know, make it difficult to be able to move forward. So that was a really lovely takeaway. Liz talks about making sure that you're aiming to complete things rather than have them as perfect. Now, getting on to how you can win a copy. Actually, you'll be winning this copy because it's not all dog-eared. Let's talk about it. Basically, all I'm looking for is for you to leave a comment below this video on nicolanewman.com sharing one reason why you really feel your heart's calling you to express your creativity and you would love to read Liz's book, Big Magic: Creative Living Beyond Fear. So come up with your answer, leave it down below, and we'll put it in a drawer and send out the winner in our next newsletter next week. Now, your answer doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be real, and you have to complete it and press publish, and then you'll be automatically entered into the draw. I've loved sharing my favourite takeaways from Liz's book, and I really encourage you to pick it up for a copy for yourself if you don't happen to win, and enjoy the journey that she takes you on through looking up close and personal at the creative process. Now, I'm Nicola Newman. We've got heaps more videos up our sleeve coming at you for the rest of this year, so stay tuned, and I look forward to joining you again next week on nicolanewman.com. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to share it with your friends. You can share it on Facebook, you can send it via email, and we'll spread the love for living a creative life.